Hello. Today is the 19th of February, 2025. My name is Michael Tillinger, and welcome to One Small Town podcast number 11. Great to be with you again. Some very exciting things to talk about today, as always. But first of all, let's just ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Why are we doing One Small Town? It's the question that we need to keep asking and keep answering because we need to keep reaffirming why we are doing One Small Town. And the reason is we're doing One Small Town because the world around us is falling apart. Every day we wake up and some more horrible stuff is going on in the world. It's just unbelievable. It just never seems to stop. And it just seems that the leaders that we've elected to, or the people that we've elected to be our leaders, who we think are representing our best interests and are there to do the best for us, the people, most of them, I'm not saying all of them, but by far the largest majority of global leaders today are in it for very other reasons. And that's why we're doing One Small Town. That's why One Small Town was launched. That's why the idea came about, together with the concept of money, where money comes from, how it works, who's got the right to create money, to print money, to issue money, and this entire control system that's created, around the world, this matrix that we're trapped in. That's why we're doing One Small Town. That's why I'm doing it. That's why I've been doing this for 20 years now, since 2005. And it's fascinating to see how the wave of awareness and people realizing that something is not quite right, how that wave keeps, it seems to fluctuate. We go through moments where people seem to be either scared and feel like they're cornered and they don't know what to do, and they just seem to, they feel like they want to give up. And then there are times where there's this wave and resurgence of people that want to get out of the box and do something for themselves. Well, One Small Town is that movement that keeps growing, keeps improving, and keeps coming up with solutions for the problems that we face as humanity. It doesn't matter what country you're in, whether you're in South Africa, where I'm right now, where we have some serious problems right now, or whether you're in the United States, where there's an interesting resurgence of patriotism, of people taking control of their country, and to Europe, what's happening in Europe. It seems like it's an absolute mess with a few leaders standing up for patriots and people's rights to protect their culture, to protect their language. And it's just such a mess. And it's for that reason that One Small Town was launched. And One Small Town, starting with the Ubuntu movement and then turning into the One Small Town initiative, was launched. Now, on a daily basis, by the way, this is going out on YouTube and this is going out live on Facebook. So, hello to everybody on Facebook. Please send me a message, send me a note that you're there. And hello to everybody on YouTube over here. I'm experimenting with my brand new fancy microphone, which really records incredibly good sound. So we'll see what it sounds like afterwards. In any case, so every morning I wake up, and as I get into my One Small Town headspace and try assessing what we need to do, what are we doing, what are we working on, where am I supposed to focus my attention today and this week and this coming month, because there's so much going on and we're busy with so many different things across many countries, across all continents, and dealing with people from Australia, New Zealand to Brazil to other South American countries, and obviously North America, mostly USA and Canada, and then Europe and all of Asia, India, all our amazing members and ambassadors in India. There's so much going on, and somehow we got to pull this together and make sure that we we create a platform and an environment where the One Small Town members that join us know that this is something that's evolved over a long period, and that is sound, stable, solid, and that it's there as a tool for us to use to launch One Small Town. But at the same time, I look around me every day, and I'm torn between lashing out at the evil that's going on around us, and and holding our governments and our politicians accountable for the atrocious deeds that they perform, the atrocious behavior, and the terrible things that they do. And I'm torn between doing that and then focusing on one small town. So, and then I get reminded that I have gone through the phase for many years of taking on the government, of taking on the banks in the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court in South Africa, going into politics, becoming an opposition party, opposing the others to try and assert our way. And I realized that that is exactly why the One Small Town initiative was created. And that's why we launched it. And that's why I was so adamant in 2016 that it was going to be the last time we participated in any political election and the last time that we oppose anybody, because politics is a terrible, crooked, horrible business. And the more I think about it, the more I'm reaching a conclusion that whoever came up with the structure of politics that we use today did it on purpose, knowing that when various political parties register themselves and they go out there to represent specific people's needs, they become an opposition to everybody else. And therefore we oppose everybody. And through opposition comes friction and dis-ease and unhappiness and often violence and war and lack of communication. You just don't want to hear what the other people have to say. And it's for that very specific reason that we do not do conflict, violence, or opposition with One Small Town. But there does come a time that we have to raise our voice and be heard about what is going on and the terrible things and the evil in the world, without taking sides or without trying to ostracize a certain group of people or that group of people or so forth, because that's just another form of division and opposition. And I tell you what, our politicians are doing a bloody great job of dividing us and dividing people. It is very clear to any sober thinking person alive today, or anyone that watches the mainstream media or the legacy media, whatever you want to call it, and watches the news and watches the angles that they take and the way they pose questions and the baiting and the instigating. It is a constant non-stop. And I'm not talking about the mainstream channels, whether it's CNN or BBC or SABC or Canadian TV, CBC over there. You just see that these have all been captured by the globalists that are trying to enslave humanity. And ultimately, that's a conclusion that I reach, and I'm sure many of you watching this and that will be watching this have come to the same conclusion, that somehow humanity has been infiltrated by some really nasty, evil people that have managed to take control of our governments and use it as their clandestine, what do you call it? A gangster's paradise. It's organized crime. Governments and those in charge, in many ways, have really taken control of the institutions that are supposed to represent us, and turned it into their own tools of enslavement. And that's why we're doing One Small Town. That's why I'm doing One Small Town, so we can get away from that. We can get away from the division and the opposition. And we start collaborating and cooperating and realize that we all want the same thing, besides those that are obviously trying to enslave us. Whatever words you want to use, you're free and welcome to replace my words and use your own. But it is very obvious that we need to find a way to cooperate, collaborate, and stop believing and listening to any of these infiltrators and people that are trying to divide us. And the division is so subtle. It is so clever. It's like these people that are doing it have gone to some advanced school of propaganda and brainwashing and mind control. I swear, sometimes that's what it feels like. Because you watch these channels and you go, Where do these guys get it from? Where do they learn to be so evil, to ask questions that are so toxic and that are so obviously, um, you know, the questions that they ask, these journalists, are so loaded to try and catch you or try and say you something out of place, or try and make you say something out of place. So we don't do that. We need to get away from that. And it's really on that note that we have to address the elephant in the room. And I've spoken about this issue many, many times over the years with absolute confidence, because if you come from a place of absolute integrity, then there's no question or nothing that is hidden. Everything is in the open. And I would like to say this about, myself and the journey that I've walked, and the One Small Town, the evolution of the Ubuntu movement and One Small Town, how it has evolved through sticking to the same narrative, saying the same things. And if you go back and follow my Facebook pages and my social media pages, you will see that I was saying in 2009, 2010, and even before that, 2005, I was saying the same things then as I'm saying now. It's just that the approach has changed as to how are we going to get this message to the people. How are we going to create a new world of abundance and prosperity? So the message is the same. It's just that the methodology and the route that we've chosen, and the route that has evolved, and the route that was given to me, given to us by some divine intervention. And I truly believe that the reason I'm here today, 2 decades later, still saying the same things and promoting One Small Town, is because by some divine grace and intervention, I've been led down this path and given the right information just at the right time to take us from moment to moment, from era to era in the One Small Town evolution. So let's discuss this thing called race, the big elephant in the room, and the incredible division that is being driven by mainstream media, by government instigators to divide people based on race groups and racial division. And it is absolutely unbelievable. And it's really heartening to see how many people have woken up. There are so many wide awake people that know not to take the bait anymore. And yet there's still people out there that fall for the bait and the race baiting and the racist, those that keep calling others racists. And normally it's the one that calls somebody else a racist. Normally that's the one who is a racist. In One Small Town, it's not about who you are, where you come from, what race you may belong to, even what religion you are, even though right now there's a lot of tension between certain religions. And you can see that it's done on purpose to create those tensions. We've got to be really careful how we navigate this and not fall for the bait, as I mentioned, to lash out and start falling for the political pitfalls and traps that are out there. We need to stick to being absolutely focused on delivering solutions for all the problems that we face, because we as humanity have all the solutions. The people of the world have solutions for every single problem that we face. And I know this from experience, from having done this for 2 decades now. And that's for me the most exciting thing. So today we're going to be talking about solutions. But first, let's just continue and conclude the discussion about race. Now, one of my favorite statements is that we are not the human race. We are the human races. And it's very obvious and well recognized that there are a number of different race groups that occupy this planet. There's still a huge question as to how these different race groups came about. Where did they come from? When did they suddenly appear? How did they end up occupying different parts of the world? Why is it the Aboriginal people, somehow evolved and grown and live in Australia? Why is it that the Asian, Chinese kind of feature type people that live in the Far East? Why is it that Indian people from India have the features that they have? Why is it that Africans look the way that Africans look? Why is it that Native Americans in the Americas look the way they look? the way they look, and why is it the Caucasians, the white people, and the blue and blonde people from Europe and the Nordic people, why do they look the way they look? There are very distinct race groups on Earth, and we need to come to terms with that. The fact that this whole initiative to try and mix everybody together and say, oh, you're all the same, you're all the same, that's part of the evil undermining division to undermine people's personal cultural pride, to undermine African pride and Indian pride and Aboriginal pride and Bushman pride and Caucasian pride, because they're all trying to push us together to say, no, you're all the same, you're all the same, and you should all share the same whatever, and that's part of the problem. I've been stating the opposite. I've been making very clear that we need to recognize the different race groups, recognize to which race group you belong to, and then be proud of that race group and be a honorable representative of who you are and the race that you represent. Because we can't wave a magic wand and all become, chocolate colored mixture of all the different race groups. I've often wondered, like, what happens when people start interbreeding and between race groups and so forth, and eventually, after a few thousand years, there'll be no races left. There'll just be this homogeneous color and look, genetic look of all the people because we've been interbreeding for so long between the different race groups. I'm asking, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? It's an interesting question to pose. I believe that it's important to recognize who you are and take ownership of that. Recognize that your ancestors might have done some terrible things, but you're not your ancestors. You are who you are. And it all depends on how you behave, what you say, and how you treat other fellow humans of all race groups and cultures and belief systems, how you treat them and how you interact with them. That will make the world either a terrible place of great conflict, or it'll turn the world into a beautiful, harmonious place where we celebrate our own culture. We protect and cultivate our own culture while we recognize and appreciate and honor other people's culture, other race groups, other races, or other cultural groups. It may not always be a race thing, but it is very depressing for me. Depressing is the wrong word. It's not depressing. It's infuriating. It's incredibly infuriating to see the mainstream media with a constant racial division, race baiting, and it goes right up to the government, to some of the governments that have literally become masters of this race baiting and division on race. That truly breaks my heart and makes me really, really infuriated because so many people are falling for those baits and falling for that, and we've got to stop that. Just understand that most people in the world want what you want. Most people in the world want to be left alone. They want to lead beautiful lives. They want to have beautiful families and feel comfortable with their families and their communities and their culture. They don't want outsiders to come and disturb and upset their culture and force them to stop doing certain things because of their culture, because they don't appreciate their culture and so forth. And that, for me, is where the One Small Town initiative provides obvious solutions, because everything that happens in one small town happens because of what people contribute to the well-being of their community. It doesn't matter what culture or what race you may be, what background you may come from. It is all about you, your honor, your integrity, what you contribute towards the well-being of your community. And that's one of the things that I just love the most. And I have seen it at work. I have seen it during our campaigns when we were campaigning with the Ubuntu Party, but as the One Small Town movement, as the One Small Town initiative. It was absolutely, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because I'll leave that for a separate discussion I guess it's more of a recalling of learning and absorbing knowledge and wisdom from the experiences that we've had and I've had growing this movement and trying all the different areas, including politics. So be proud of who you are. Take ownership of who you are, whether you're an African from North Africa or East or West Africa or South Africa, or a descendant of the Bushmen and the Bushman tribes in Southern Africa that have been decimated in ways that is simply unacceptable and heartbreaking, because pretty much all the Bushman tribes and all the different associated tribes whose names I can't recall right now, the Hesekwa people and so forth. But it's a complex, ancient tribe of people and groups of people here in South Africa that belong to the what collectively called the Bushmen. That and by the way, I've spoken to some of the Bushman elders, and they seem to agree and appreciate being called Bushmen rather than a few other names like SAN, like San. San is not a good word, right? Among a lot of the descendants of the Bushman people. So no matter who you are, just be proud of who you are. Take ownership of who you are, and then decide what you're going to do to make the world a better place. And there is no better home to come to than the One Small Town initiative, because no one's going to look at you because of what color you are or how smart or how dumb you may be. When I say dumb, use that word. Use that word with jest. How smart or how uneducated you might appear to be, because you don't have a college degree or you didn't finish school, but you might be a much better baker or a much better engineer or welder than any of these people with fancy degrees. And without the people that make up an entire community, from those that do the hands-on work, the beautiful craftsmanship, whether they're carpenters or welders or plumbers or electricians or whatever else, to the so-called, educated with the degrees and doctors and lawyers and so forth and so forth. Our community needs a well-balanced mix of all these people and all these professions. Otherwise, we will not survive and succeed as a community, especially the farmers. Especially the farmers, those people that in South Africa right now are under great attack. And it's very heartbreaking to see that. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But it seems like farmers all over the world are under attack. And I know this opening monologue is now going on for a lot longer than I imagined, but it's really important. And I'd like to make sure that I get this message across. Without food, without farmers, we have no food. And there's very clearly an attack on the global food supply, on our capacity and our ability to grow food. All kinds of rules, regulations, and the restrictions are being thrown at us by our own appointed leaders. So we can't grow food, we can't do this, can't do that. Come on, guys, really? This is not why we appoint our leaders, to prevent us from growing food. But I'll talk about that a little bit later, about the solutions to our problems, and that's one of them: growing food and being able to grow food. So, my God, see, now I've lost my train of thought there. That's what happens when you go down these little rabbit holes. So let's realize that One Small Town is the home for everybody. And it doesn't matter who you are, as long as you contribute towards the well-being of your community, you'll be loved, honored, and respected for who you are. Because everybody will see you for who you are, not for who you pretend to be, through ads and through PR and social media. People in your town will know you. They know where you live. They know what you do. They know what you contribute to your community's well-being every day. And that's the kind of community I want to live in, because that's the kind of community that is going to be a stable community, that where people will know and honor and respect each other and support each other in times of need, which is right now. We are in desperate times of need, probably more so than in many, many years. So One Small Town is that kind of community. And that's what we're building. You may have heard throughout the week, last week, the very exciting news about our technology and our food distribution network. We're working very hard on that right now. And that's going to then spill over into the seed treatment and start creating some of these treated seeds that we can start sharing with our farmers. So that's all happening in the background while we are finalizing our technology and getting, manufacturing more and more of these machines and getting ready to start sharing them with our One Small Town ambassadors around the world in the different countries so that they can provide badly needed funding for some of the One Small Town initiatives. So that's going on a daily basis, and it's very, very exciting. It is, it's amazing being part of I guess, a research and development team that took something out of nothing and turned it into a unique intellectual property that is probably the best in the world right now. Not because any one of us are really clever and geniuses. It's just because we follow logic, and yes, we have some very, very, very good people in our team, engineers and build people that know how to build things in factories and things like that. We have designers and out of the mind inventors and designers that can design anything. If you want a machine that does that, they'll design it for us within a week, sometimes within 24 hours. So we've really put together an incredible team in the One Small Town initiative, and that has brought on many more inventors and innovators that are now sharing their technology with us. And I'll be sharing a lot more of that. But the reason I brought this up is because I'm in the final stages of finishing the prospectus for a brand new token that we'll be launching, and that is the One Small Town technology token. I'm not going to say too much more about it because I want to keep that as a little surprise. I want to give everything away now. We're putting together a technology token that'll represent a diverse number of technologies from recycling to water purification, desalination, air conditioning, the seed treatment, and so many more technologies that have been presented to us by inventors, and more coming on a regular basis. And I trust that as we launch these technologies and we launch our technology token, that'll be representative of all these technologies collectively. And there's a whole way that you can then choose which technology you would like to place some of your tokens into. So in essence, we're creating like a private One Small Town technology stock exchange, if you want to call it that. But it's obviously a private membership network where we invite people to fund this new development technology and actually get a reward in return without getting involved and embroiled in the complex legal systems that are associated with shareholding and profit share and et cetera, et cetera, and buying shares and so forth, which then needs to be registered with the Securities Exchange Act and Commission, and so forth. So very exciting times, and I think by the end of this week, this prospectus will be done. And I hope that by the end of February, we'll launch this new technology token. But that'll be a special event, and there'll be lots of PR and videos and hoorah around it, right? So where are we going from here? So instead of lashing out every day, and I must say I've been guilty of it. I read the news and I read X and I watch the headlines on YouTube and various channels that I follow, and it breaks my heart to see what's happening, what some of the toxic global leaders are doing. And I want to just lash out. I want to jump in there and start showing up these people for who they are. And then I realized, oops, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Just shut your mouth and work on One Small Town. Because the last thing we want is for people to start paying attention to us that might have unreasonable control over certain situations. We don't want that. We don't want to make enemies of everybody, or of anybody, rather. We don't want to make enemies. We don't want to have governments look negatively upon us. We want governments to see us as their ally, as their friends, because in so many ways, the One Small Town initiative is going to help municipalities solve their problems by us, the people, fixing up our towns. So every municipality should be on our side. Every council should be on our side. Every government should be on our side because we're helping them solve the problems without it costing them a cent. It's not going to cost them anything because we provide our funding. We start the companies. We do everything ourselves. So we build our towns up and we fix the problems and we find the solutions for the problems. And this is all a benefit, whether it's to the municipality or the local council or the provincial or the state government or eventually the national government. The one small town communities are going to be providing solutions that, quite frankly, our governments and our councils cannot solve because most of the time they don't have enough money. It always starts with the money. There's not enough money. Again, you see, now there's another rabbit hole I want to jump down. And that rabbit hole would be, well, if we shut down the private central banks and we open people's banks that are controlled by the government as a representative of the people, the shortage of money gets sorted out in 24 hours. But I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole because I've done videos on that already. If you're confused about that statement, then please go and watch some of my videos about central banks and the difference between central banks and people's banks, right? So eventually, the key thing with One Small Town is that it comes down to the people, and the power lies with the people. And we constantly forget that the power lies with the people. And as soon as we remember that and keep remembering that and putting that into practice in our one small town activities, whether it's community development activities or whether it's starting businesses for profit, for maximum profit that we then share amongst ourselves because these are our businesses, we need to keep reminding ourselves that the power lies with the people. And we need to start learning how to use that power. And once we learn how to use that people power, that collective, united, cooperative power, that when we stand together to achieve a certain goal in our communities, we can achieve anything. Because keep in mind that ultimately, the mayor, the council, and all those people that sit there that often make rules and pass laws that are anti our communities, that are not benefiting our communities, not benefiting us, all those people ultimately are elected by us, the people, whether it's via the regional government or the national government or direct local elections where we appoint the mayor ourselves. And I know many countries have that. The USA is a great example. And that's why the USA is such a great fertile ground for one small town to really explode in 2025. And I'm going to say that again. I know that we're going to launch One Small Town very successfully in various countries, various times, and every week that day gets closer when we get to that closer to that Cinderella One Small Town. But I do believe that even after South Africa, where I am, and other countries, and the USA is going to be where it really explodes. Because first of all, I believe what's happening on the political front right now, a lot of deregulation is happening, which is a huge relief and you know the opportunities that are opening up for people in various sectors. And I believe that One Small Town is literally going to explode, especially with our technology. Once we've installed the technology in the USA through our USA ambassadors and the USA management team, it's going to be a quite a big deal. Right. So where are we? We are. We've spoken about why we're doing this. I've spoken about being torn about lashing out. So if you see any posts on social media where I go a bit crazy, lash out at people, please forgive me. I know I'm not supposed to do that because we're supposed to promote neutrality. We're supposed to promote solutions. Sometimes I just can't help myself, and I'll stop doing that. I'll make a promise here on this podcast that I'll stop doing that. Stop lashing out at evil politicians and globalists, and rather keep sharing good news, solutions for our problems, and ideas for one small town, and so forth, and etc. So solving our problems. Let's get to solving our problems. I mentioned earlier, and I keep repeating myself. One Small Town initiative has evolved to the point where we can literally solve any problem that we face as the human race. Now, anyone that's new to this and anyone that's new to seeing me talk might just be thinking, what an arrogant prick. How can you make such an arrogant statement that you think you can solve all the problems we face as the human race? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely yes. And not because I'm smart, not because I think I'm so great that I can solve any problem. No, it's because I've been doing the one small town model for so long, and I've done so many workshops and lectures and presentations, and especially the workshops. So whether it's a 1 day workshop or a weekend workshop or a 5 day workshop, the moment you start connecting with people and sharing the one small town ideas and how it works and how do we do this, how do we do that, the solutions for our problems start coming out from the people. The people, we, the members, as we do the workshop, we start coming up with solutions. And it's always been one of my favorite, since I haven't done this now, since lockdown, since 2020, I haven't been traveling the world talking about one small town. But one of my favorite moments always was in the workshops was when I would, at the end of the workshop, right at the end of it, um, um, I would ask the people to reach into the pocket and pull out the piece of paper that right in the beginning, I would ask them, hand out pieces of paper and say, write down one or two or three questions about how we're going to solve this problem, or how do you think we're going to solve this problem? Write down three problems that you think are unsolvable in the One Small Town initiative. And right at the end, the last thing we'd always do in our workshops is I would make the people take out their little pieces of paper and then come up to the microphone and read the question to the rest of the class and the rest of the workshop. And it's weird. It turned into almost like a stand-up comedy routine because as the person started to read out the question to the rest of the workshop members, they would start to laugh, and everybody else would start to laugh or giggle or shout the answer or do something humorous because by the time you've done the workshop and you've started to deprogram the the brainwashing and the programming that we all suffer from the world that we enter, from the education system and the work systems and that we engage from the earliest of ages, that we're all equally brainwashed and we all equally programmed. So when you start reading out that question that you thought a few days before is unsolvable, you start to laugh because you realize how brainwashed you were, how narrow-minded you were, how incapable you were to think outside of the box, that we can solve all our problems. And it was always one of my favorite moments of these workshops that I did for 12 years around the world. So when I say I am confident that we as One Small Town members can solve any problems that are thrown at us that we face in our community, as long as we come together and we discuss it and we come up ideas and solutions, and then we implement those solutions because we've thought about it, we've brought in experts, we've brought in people that are good at mediating meetings and getting the best out of people, and we'll always come up with a solution. There's another little anecdote I might want to share with you. One of the examples, for example, it was an instant. It was one of those, often there'd be arrogant people, very, beautiful but arrogant, and they would come to the workshops and they just come there with a mind like you're a communist. You're trying to sell us communism. Okay, if you think that contributionism is equivalent to communism, then clearly you have no idea what communism is, because it's exactly the opposite of what contributionism is. So they would ask questions like, "So who's going to shovel the crap?" And I say, "Okay, so you think that you don't want to shovel the crap because you're a very important guy, and so let's ask the people here. So in our community, if this was our community, who is going to shovel the crap?" And the most beautiful thing would always happen, like clockwork. One or two or three or four or five people would put up their hand and say, "I'll shovel the crap." It's quite spectacular to see that happen in real live, terms, like when it's happening live. So who's going to shovel the crap? And a bunch of people put up their hands. Then I'd look at the person that asked the question and I'd say, does that answer your question? And they just shut up because they didn't expect somebody to put up their hand and say, I'll shovel the crap. It's an incredible thing. But yet, that's not what we're doing. You see, that question is asked from a position of a lack of comprehension of what one small town is. It's not about, some people are going to be shoveling the crap and others are going to be. No, we all have to contribute equally. So whether you're a surgeon and your job is being a surgeon, you still going to have to take 3 hours a week out of your time to come and do something for your community. And that something is not going to be being a surgeon because that's what you do as a job. And it might end up being in a community clinic or something, but you as a surgeon might actually end up coming help the baker or to help to drive the truck because you happen to have a truck driver's license, but you're also a surgeon. And you might help to drive the truck that takes the milk to the market or something like that. It's unpredictable what's going to happen and what people will do. So there'll always be somebody that will be shoveling the crap, but all of us ultimately will end up shoveling the crap because that's how the one small town constitution is structured. We all contribute. Sometimes we're going to be picking fruit. Sometimes we're going to be driving a truck. Sometimes we're going to be doing IT or PR or social media because that's what we're good at and that's what we've been asked to do. Sometimes we're going to breed horses because there's a big horse race coming up and whatever. Just let your mind run free. Think outside the box. How do we solve problems in a one small town situation? My goodness, I've been rambling on for 40 minutes. So let me see what else. Let me see where we're going with this. So we're dealing with solving problems, and it's very disheartening to see, and I'm sure that virtually everyone that is going to watch this or is watching this will agree and understand how our governments and our elected officials, instead of helping solve our problems, keep making more rules, more regulations, more acts, and more bills to make things more difficult for us as the people that have elected them. It's quite spectacular. So clearly, that's one of the big problems why politics never really solves a problem and just keeps making more problems, right? It's just incredible to see that happen right in front of our eyes every day. Politicians hardly ever solve problems. Sometimes they do, but hardly ever. Most of the time, politicians just keep making more problems and becoming more destructive and divisive. And right now, I tell you what, South Africa is one of the greatest examples of that kind of division that comes from not all politicians, but from the top brass politicians that are in control, that are in power, that have been elected. And they are not doing good things for this country, I must say. Once again, I'm lashing out, you see. I must catch myself. So we know what they're doing. We know how they just trying to make it difficult for us. So we need to find solutions, and we are finding those solutions. And we got to understand that we, the people, will find the solutions because we are the community. We have diverse skills, knowledge, experiences, and we have diverse groups of people from different backgrounds that are good at certain things. And because of the team effort, that's how we solve the problems. So what I find interesting, sometimes, children sometimes can cut right through the crap. And if you throw a problem at them, they'll solve it quicker than a bunch of adults in a room. Children will often solve the problems faster than adults. It'll be interesting to see how, when we have a problem in the community, bring some children in and say, right, we need to solve this problem. How do you think we should solve it? What do you think we should do? And see what the children have to say. I can tell you, probably majority of the time, they're going to come up with solutions that the adults may not have thought of. And they'll be beautiful and wonderful solutions that we could and should potentially implement to solve that problem. So, where else have I got in my notes? Obviously, farmers, when it comes to agriculture, farmers know how to solve problems. Why are we looking at, why is government trying to solve problems in the agricultural industry? Why is government appointing so-called experts that are normally they paid consultants from big pharma and agricultural industries? Obviously, there's a hidden agenda happening there. So when it comes to farming, we've got to look where the experts are, and farmers are the experts in farming. And I'm going to stick with the subject for a little while now because agriculture and farming is arguably one of the most important things that we need to take back from being controlled by the by those who are trying to undermine our success. Um, and farmers all over the world are under attack. I mean, look what's happening in the UK. Look what's happened in India over the last few years with the farmers. And what's happening in the States, how farmers are forced to kill their stock and kill their chickens and kill their cows. And what, by government? Are you insane? Really? Farmers have been farming for thousands of years. If anybody knows how to deal, how to farm, those will be people that have grown up in a farming community, a farming family, and obvious some of the farmers today have gone to agricultural school and farm schools and so forth, and they've learned the modern techniques of farming. And if you combine that with a deep understanding of soil and the laws of nature and organic food and how to grow healthy food properly, farmers should be the ones solving problems in agriculture, not politicians and not special consultants that come from large corporations with a financial vested interest in achieving a certain outcome. The moment you see a consultant in any agricultural meeting that comes from either a pharmaceutical company, whether it's Bayer or Monsanto, or any of these agricultural big pharma industries or chemical companies, you know that you're in trouble because those guys are not going to try and help you solve your problems. They're going to try and put new rules and regulations to make you do things their way so they can benefit financially. So when it comes to solving agricultural problems and farming problems, we must always bring in the farmers and bring in the farming experts that are actually doing it, that are working the farms, being on the land, developing new technology, developing new systems, because that's what they do day in and day out. And those are the people that need to solve our problems. And we've seen that so beautifully in South Africa and various other people from around the world that have shared their knowledge in agriculture and soil stimulation, re-energizing soil that has been depleted over many years of farming and pesticides and fertilizers and all that kind of stuff, where the soil literally becomes so exhausted and depleted that nothing will grow in it. There are farmers that know exactly how to treat that and what to do about that, and farmers who become inventors, or scientists who become farmers, or biologists who become farmers and then invent new techniques and nutrients that can help solve those problems. We have all these solutions. We don't need to go any outside consultants. We don't need government to give us advice. We as a community can solve these problems. But then there's one additional hurdle that we need to cross. And that hurdle is how to lobby your local authorities or your local mayors or authorities or councils or state government or eventually national government. If the authorities in those areas are juxtaposed to what you want to do, you're going to have a problem until you stand together, until you stand united as a community, as people who demand the rights to the basic human rights to be able to grow food for ourselves, until you start standing together, until we start standing together and take our solutions as a united front to the so-called authorities who sometimes may want to obstruct us and many cases do obstruct us, we will never be able to achieve these solutions. So if you try and do this on your own, if you try and stand up as a lone farmer and stand up against the government or your council or your mayor that is doing something really nasty to the farmers in your area and you've fallen a victim to that, if you try and do that alone, you're not going to get very far. But when you start doing it together, and when all the farmers and the entire community stands together, and you take your gripe and your your solutions to your council, your mayor, or the local government, that changes the odds completely because now you're talking from a position of strength. And these people in politics will know that they should rather side with the people in most cases. Sometimes they're so evil that they just don't budge. But in most cases, we will find solutions that at the moment seem to be insurmountable because we do it together collectively as a united front. And standing together exerts a lot more power and strength than standing alone. So this is important, and that stands for not just agriculture and farming, which is critical. Uh, and this is why in the One Small Town initiative, so much of our focus and effort is on growing food, farming, working with farmers, developing our seed treatment technologies and the seed banks and providing seeds for the farmers and so forth. And then taking that down the value chain of farming and all the different foods. That alone is a huge industry that can pretty much and possibly sustain every town, every small town, just the agricultural industry and all its many value chain items that they can create. So, and that extends to every other sector of our lives. And I've got six areas of our lives here that we need to be able to find solutions for all the problems. And we can find solutions if we stand together and stand united. So the areas that I've earmarked here is it's agriculture, education, housing and building, obviously, water security, both for home and agriculture, electricity provision, and healthcare. So those are the six areas. If we can fix those areas as a community, then we very quickly create a very strong, united community that provides all the solutions for the problems we face and be able to create abundance in every one of those areas. Now, education is an interesting one because one of the reasons that so many people are so brainwashed and out of touch and not awake, just fast asleep. It's like they took the blue pill, right? And and education is the reason for that because our education has become so ridiculous. And the stuff they teach us at school, the stuff they teach us, the stuff they taught me, and the stuff they teach our children at school today are so ridiculous. Most of them, talk about most of this, not all of the stuff, but most of the stuff are so ridiculous and useless that we shouldn't be taught that at school. We need some basic literacy. We need basic mathematics and science and physics and biology and basic accounting and basic, the basic stuff. But over and above that, we need to start focusing on the areas that we as young children and young adults and teenagers, as we go through school, the things that we are attracted to, the things that we would like to learn about, not what the authorities are telling us and shoving down our throats. And the fact that so many of our global population are so brainwashed and literally like zombies, following the orders of the global, globalists that are trying to enslave humanity, following the beat and marching to the beat of these globalists because they've been so brainwashed and, in a sense, lobotomized by the lies and the propaganda that they don't realize that the education that they've had is actually not there to serve them, is there to serve the overlord, to serve the corporations. Because remember what Rockefeller said. Rockefeller said that he doesn't want a nation of thinkers, he wants a nation of workers. That clearly tells you what these guys are after. So the current education system, it's got nothing to do with giving us knowledge or wisdom and preparing us to lead, successful lives and being able to do different things. No, we've got zero skills when we leave school, literally zero skills. Think about what you can do. And then you go and learn something. You go to college, you have to get secondary and tertiary education, and you learn other skills, and you get a degree to do this or that. And then when you leave that, you then have to go into a job where you start as an intern. So you can learn those skills on a practical level. I mean, how insane is that? Are we insane? Is this the education that we have? Really? It's all upside down. It's all back to front. Surely we should be learning the skills for life from the earliest of ages. And the skills for life are very obvious. Survival, water, air, earth, soil, growing seeds, planting food, harvesting, storing water, cooking, healthcare, natural medicines, medicinal, natural healing, medicinal plants growing in the fields all around us, learning the basic things. And there are brilliant people that have put together brilliant curriculums. Curriculi, is that the right word? Curriculums, curriculi, that have put together brilliant modules to teach all this amazing knowledge and wisdom to our young children, and starting from the earliest of ages. You know, I've often said that once we got the One Small Town model rolling and it's really maturing, I believe that any 16-year-old, by the time they reach 16, through a One Small Town education system, will be wiser and smarter than most of the professors in the world thrown together. And I say that with great love in my heart for many of the great academics out there. Unfortunately, most of the academics, although many of them might have good intentions, once you're an academic in a tertiary institution, or even high school institution or whatever, you're trapped in the system. You have to teach what is given to you to teach. So you don't have freedom to teach knowledge and wisdom. So it's important to know that we need to find a whole new way of teaching our children. And that will come through community decision, reaching out to the smartest people in our community. And wouldn't you want the smartest person in your community, whether it's the smartest scientist, to come and teach children about science instead of just a teacher? And I'm not talking badly about teachers at all. There are some brilliant teachers, but and the teachers will always be there. The teachers will always be part of our education system, but it'll be teachers that will do it for the love of teaching, not because it's a job. And this is really important. So the entire education system will change, and those who hate it because they just do it because it's a job, it's a means to an end, they will leave and they'll follow their dreams. They'll go do other stuff. While those who love to teach and want to teach, who've been pushed out of the education system, will then come back. They'll be attracted back to become teachers again because that's what they love to do. But at the same time, it's really important to bring in the real experts. So if you have a real scientist in town that is an expert in quantum mechanics, you bring them in, or a bridge builder that knows how to build bridges, you bring them in to teach them how to build a bridge, not theoretically, but practically. If you have master horticulturists or master food growers, you bring them in to teach the children how to grow food, or master welders or master craftsmen in your community. From carpenters to plumbers to bakers to people that make beautiful cheese. These are the people you want to teach our children, right? How to do things. Not just somebody that reads from a textbook that has got no knowledge of that subject except what they've learned from a textbook. So, education. We have plenty of solutions for education, but we must do that together as a collective and a community, and find the best people in our community and the best way of teaching those subjects. And quite frankly, I'm with Plato all the way. Plato's most famous statement about education was that without the element of play and game and fun, having fun, there'll be very little education or learning taking place. So the best way to teach children and young minds is through physical interaction, practical hands-on experience, and game and play and fun and interaction. So if you weave the knowledge and the teaching of that special subject into that kind of an environment, the level of uptake of knowledge and information and wisdom, especially wisdom from that experience, is going to be so much better and so much higher and so much more valuable than sitting in a classroom and listening to a talking head reading from a textbook and trying to explain something on a blackboard. Okay, so I can't wait for our first One Small Town schools with the new curriculums they'll be putting together, and I guess as a private school, this could be a great business for towns to attract people with money who want to send their kids from the cities to these small town schools where they know their children are going to benefit from this incredible knowledge pool and experience and high level expertise training and sharing of knowledge by the best people. So I think private, or when I say private schools, I mean schools in a small town could become a very good business model for the small towns to make a lot of money for their town by putting together a really, really good school that they then open up, not just to their own children, obviously, but open it up to children from, people in the city, or rich parents that have money to send their kids to a fancy school somewhere. So just think about that. And that obviously extends to tertiary education, secondary and tertiary education, and so forth. And then special training skills as well. So I know that I've said we're going to solve problems and find solutions for problems. I'm going through some of these just to help you think out the box, help you step over that line and start thinking, yeah, we don't have to do things the way our government is prescribing for us to do, because ultimately we elect them into power, and if they don't do what we like, then we need to re-elect somebody that's going to do our will and do what we as the people want. So if we don't like the education system, we don't like what's going on, we need to vote somebody else in that is going to change that and free it up and deregulate. That's the word I was supposed to share with you at least half an hour ago. Deregulation. What we need most from our governments right now, which will make it a lot easier for every small town to succeed, is deregulation, deregulation, deregulation. If you think about the insane amount of red tape, bureaucracy, and regulations, and permits, and licenses that you need to start this or that or that, it is insane. It's almost impossible to start any kind of business today without jumping through a million loopholes and landmines just to try and get a permit to start your business. That's insane. It's got to stop. Surely we don't want our leaders to curtail our potential success. So if your leaders in your country and your mayor or whoever is curtailing your potential success, then let's vote them out. Let's use that democratic vote to vote them out. Because if we have good humanitarian leaders in place, from the highest power to the lowest power, throughout all of our appointed leadership or elected leadership, if we have humanitarians that have the best interest of their people at heart, it's going to be so much easier to create a world of prosperity and abundance for all of us. It's going to be so much easier to initiate one small town everywhere and make it a success very quickly. So where there's bureaucracy and red tape and hurdles put in our ways, we have to find the ways and solutions to overcome them, to navigate between them, around them, find the best solutions until we eventually eradicate them, because we become the powerful majority of thousands of small towns in a country that speak together as one voice and that force the changing of laws, regulations, and bureaucratic restrictions through the masses and the voice of the people. So that was the deregulating. The other thing that I've made notes about that I forgot about is, there are so many vacant buildings. South Africa is a great example. The last 30 years under the ANC rule that has just caused absolute destruction of our infrastructure. There are an insane amount of beautiful old buildings that are standing vacant. And the same goes for I know, having driven through America, the USA for 10 years solidly every year for at least 2 to 3 months. I know the USA like the back of my hand, and I've seen the little ghost towns, and I've seen how the small towns in the USA have just been decimated and just literally farms standing empty, warehouses, barns, factories standing empty. The same goes for South Africa. The same goes for most of the countries of the world. So every one of those abandoned buildings or derelict buildings or farms and so forth can be used and should be used by us as a one small town community to bring back to life and to utilize for the best possible effect for our community. and the well-being of our community. Now, I've had some experience with that, trying to utilize municipal property and municipal land for the benefit of the community. And I must tell you, it is not always easy. And that's again where, when we stand united as a community, we will achieve that a lot easier than me as a lone voice trying to go to the municipality and saying, well, I'd like to use your town hall to fix it up and turn it into a community hall. Or I'd like to use the deserted fish farm to fix it up and turn it into a business that's owned by the community. If I go to the municipality, especially in South Africa right now, being a white guy, it ain't going to happen, right? So, but if we do that as a community, and we go to the municipality and say, right, we want you to give us the rights to use the deserted fish farm before it gets totally vandalized, and we're going to turn it into a community owned business. It's going to be very difficult for the municipality to refuse that request from the community. And this is why it's so absolutely critical that we organize ourselves into a tightly knit, cohesive, united community that speaks with one voice. And that voice is everything we do must benefit the entire community while benefiting all of its members, not just some of its members, all of its members. And by if it benefits the entire community, if it's a business that's community owned, it means the profits get distributed equally to all the members of one small town in that community. So if we start this business and it's a success financially, that means all of us are gonna benefit. So it's very, very obvious and very simple, right? So where are we time-wise? Okay, we've gone 1 hour, nearly 1 hour, 10 minutes. So healthcare. Let's quickly talk about healthcare, right? You know how difficult it's become to even open a clinic or a hospital. It's like the medical mafia have put in so much bureaucratic red tape and rules and regulations that in South Africa right now, it's almost impossible to build a new hospital. It is despicable. But I can tell you, when you as a community go to your local government and there's 100,000 people that says, we've got the money, we got the funds, we want to build our own hospital, it's going to be very difficult for the government to stand in their way. And they're going to have to issue a license. And I'm saying this, I'm sharing these examples with you because it just highlights and really focuses the importance of a united community that stands together, that cooperates, collaborates, and speaks with one voice. When we decide we're going to do something, we then do it together with one voice, with our representative that goes and presents that and says, this is what we want, and we want you to give us a license or a permit for this. If not, we as a community are going to make your life a living hell because you're supposed to do what we want and not what you want, right? So there are solutions, there are ways of solving the solutions. And this has all come through hardcore experiences that I've had to personally go through, working through politics, working through community development projects and initiatives here in my own town, from fixing the town hall, fixing the sports fields, fixing, other companies and businesses that were lying idle, recreational areas and so forth, fishing recreational areas, doing that for the community with some of the members of the community and seeing how successful it is when the community participates and how the evil municipality that has got some nasty individuals in it will fight back unless you stand up as a community and say, no, 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 no. You're not going to stop us from reopening our fishing farm because that is our farm. It's our fishing farm. It's our river. It's our water. You're the custodian. You're the elected official that's supposed to help us manage it for the best outcome for our community, not to tell us that we can't do this and can't do that. So in a nutshell, One Small Town becomes a very powerful tool to assert our rights, our basic human rights. And those basic human rights, we should all know by now, right? Um, let me read this here. Food. My brain is in a bit of a time warp, so I'm going to read this off for you, right? So basic human rights for life: food, You've got to, no one should ever put a restriction on you from being able to grow food to feed yourself or your family. So if any government or any municipality or government official tries to put restrictions on you growing your food, you should know that it's time to stand up as a community and get that person out of office immediately as soon as possible. Food, water, shelter, electricity, heat, and healthcare, obviously. Healthcare, and in healthcare, that also means body sovereignty. In other words, no one has the right to inject your body with any foreign substance that you don't want them to inject you with. It is your body. You have absolute control and sovereignty over your body. And any government that tries to force you to inject something into your body is breaching your absolute right as one of the main human rights that you have is sovereignty over your own body. It's like asking you to chop off your finger, basically, right? So these are the basic human rights that we should always make sure and insist on and do whatever we need to do to assert those human rights. You know, the fact that most of our towns and cities are not allowed to generate their own electricity. Are you serious? Where does that come from? When did we give our governments and our leaders the power where they now prevent us from being able to generate our own electricity? Whether it's for your home or your factory or an entire town or community, and eventually a city. We as the people should have these rights. These should be all inalienable rights that we have that we should be able to do. So, slowly but surely, with the One Small Town initiative growing, becoming bigger, stronger, more powerful, the numbers of people will grow, the numbers of members will grow, and we'll be able to assert anything that we want for ourselves, our well being, in our communities through a collective voice across thousands of towns, whatever country you might live in. And that's the goal that we're striving for. That's the end goal, to get to a point where we as a collective, one small town, global community, can achieve anything because we stand united, not only in our towns or our provinces or states or our countries as one small town members, but across the world, across all borders, where we have a mechanism, which is the One Small Town blockchain platform, that helps us connect about everything we do, whether it's distribution of food, the infinity tokens that help us interact and exchange in a private membership exchange mechanism, so that if the banks had to close their doors tomorrow, it won't affect us. We continue operating and trading and exchanging with our infinity tokens as if nothing has even happened. And maybe this is a note that I should end on in this podcast is, what do you think would happen if the banks had to close their doors tomorrow? Now, we've had such experiences before. Remember Cyprus was 2013 when the banks closed their doors and just kept everybody's money? And I think they tried it a few times over the years. They just close their doors, say sorry, to keep everybody's money. And then obviously when banks go bankrupt and whatever money you had in that bank just disappears, vanishes into thin air. So how do we protect ourselves as One Small Town members and communities around the world from that affecting us? Well, that solution is already available for everyone to participate in. And that is the One Small Town Infinity Token. And this is why you see me talking about it all the time, because I know it takes a while. The Infinity Token is such an incredibly powerful tool for all of humanity, every single one watching this right now. The Infinity Token is the tool that will save us if the banks had to close their doors tomorrow. Because when we get to a point where our members start getting used to using the Infinity Token, the way that we used Bitcoin when it first started, and everybody is all excited about the fact that we now have an alternative medium of exchange, and we don't have to use, dollars or pounds or euros or rands or yen or whatever, and we can now pay each other in Bitcoin. That was what everybody got excited about. People didn't get excited about the fact that they can make money from Bitcoin. They can trade it or they can store it and then sell it and become billionaires. That's not what the people were thinking. The people were excited, like me, about the fact that I could get paid in a different format that is outside of the control of the global elites and the global banking families. And that's what the One Small Town Infinity Token does. It's a private membership token. It has got full asset value. We are the creators of the token because every time we contribute 3 hours of our time towards improving and upgrading our community, whether it's community projects or one of our businesses, every time we contribute 3 hours, we create that token. So the Infinity Token is a truly asset-backed community token. It's an NFT, a proper NFT that is fully backed by our own sweat equity. I don't think there's any other cryptocurrency or token like it in the world. I can't think of anyone or anything like it. And as we, as One Small Town members, start to utilize the tokens more and more and sharing them through our digital wallets. Remember, as a member, in your One Small Town account, in your digital wallet, that's where your tokens sit. You can send your tokens instantly, immediately, out of sight, out of mind, free of charge to any other member around the world. They can be right across the world. It happens instantaneously, and no one knows about it except you and the person that you're sharing your tokens with. This is the critical thing. So if the bank should close their doors tomorrow, and we've evolved using the Infinity Token throughout the One Small Town global network, we won't even know that the banks have closed their doors. We just continue operating with the Infinity Tokens and the One Small Town platform as if nothing has happened. Because we create this currency, this token, this means of exchange. We create it ourselves every time we contribute 3 hours. We don't just print it out of thin air like the central banks print our fiat currencies. This is a very sensitive subject. And this is why we spend a long time developing the platform and the structure of the Infinity Token so that it cannot be crashed, cannot be collapsed by greedy traders. It does not get traded on open stock markets and stock exchanges. It is a private membership exchange mechanism to One Small Town members only. Very, very powerful tool. I'd recommend you go out and get yourself some Infinity Tokens while they're available. And also pay attention to the launch of the new tokens that'll be coming, like the technology token. But let me be very clear: the technology token and any other future crowdfunding tokens for specific businesses or activities, those are very different animals. They're very separate from the Infinity Token. The Infinity Token is the foundation and the cornerstone of One Small Town. It is our means of exchange. Okay. Any other tokens is literally like creating our own stock exchange, private stock exchange, One Small Town stock market on the One Small Town platform for our members only that are working in the that participate in the various activities that we've created. So really, what I'd like to say is I was going to talk about the land issue and the distribution of land. Obviously, that's become an incredibly sensitive issue in South Africa at the moment, and a nasty issue to deal with. One Small Town takes care of that in a blink of an eye. But I think we've spent enough time already today on finding solutions. I think maybe I'll pick up in our next podcast on the land issue and how One Small Town seamlessly, effortlessly, without any violence, opposition, or conflict, will solve the so-called land issue that we have, not just in South Africa, but in many other countries that either foreign countries are trying to buy up the land, or land is being distributed by the government, and or in communism, or whatever it is. It's or large corporations like Bill Gates buying up huge tracts of land in the USA. How do we solve the land issue? And the One Small Town scenario initiative provides a very elegant and a beautiful solution for the land issue that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. You can catch it in some of my lectures and online lectures from the years, 10 years, 15 years back. I've spoken about the land issue for many, many years because it's a sensitive subject. And it is also, I believe it's an aspect of maturity, an aspect of maturity of consciousness. Once we reach a certain level of consciousness and we understand that we're not owners of this world, we're not owners of this planet, we're just transient travelers. We here, we enter stage left, exit stage right. We spend 70, 80, maybe some of us 100 years, and then we're gone. So the idea of ownership of land is an interesting one. And I don't want to send shivers up anybody's spine, but it's an important thing to discuss because once we realize that, see, now I'm going down the land ownership and the land problem rabbit hole. So I'm going to stop myself right here because it's going to be an exciting subject to discuss. I love that subject matter because the outcome of it is always a big smile on your face when you realize that it's so easy to solve this land issue. The greediness of land, and those that are trying to take land away from those who have land, whether it's a form of reparation or they claim it's reparation or it's some other communist disgusting trick or a rogue government, doesn't matter what it is. If you try and dispossess one group of people of their land and another group trying to dispossess them, it creates conflict. It creates an incredibly stressful and an ugly, potentially violent situation. Revolutions and wars have been fought over it, and we have a simple solution for it. And let's pick up on this on our next podcast. So I trust that you've been mildly entertained by this and hopefully inspired, hopefully lots of ideas and thoughts that have been seeded in your mind. And I'd like to say thank you for joining me once again. This is podcast number 11 with Michael Tillinger. Until we meet next time with podcast number 12, thanks very much. Until next time, bye for now.